Here we go. Toss-up 1. The first pope of this name minted the earliest known papal coins and was in power when King Desiderius of the Lombards threatened Rome, forcing that pope to invite Charlemagne's invasion of Italy. Another pope with this name had earlier sparked the Comuneros rebellion when Charles V. The namesake slope of this reaction is the overpotential divided by the natural log of the current density divided by the exchange current density for 10 points each. Name this equation, which is only applicable at high overpotentials, where the relationship between overpotential and charge density is nonlinear.
Tafel?
Yes. The Tafel equation is a special case of the Butler-Volmer equation, which is an exponential form of this other equation, which can be used to determine the redox potential of a half-cell in an electrochemical cell. The Nernst equation can be considered a more simplified version of the Goldman-Hodgkin-Katz equation, which describes the ion flux resulting from the movement of multiple ions across this structure. Similarly, the Mullins-Noda equations describe the ion flux across a specific type of this structure.
Salt bridge.
No, it's a cell membrane.
Oh.
You get 20 points. Toss-up 2. In the letter to Alexei Pleshiev, this author called his Holy of Holies the human body, health, intelligence, talent, inspiration, love, and absolute freedom. This author wrote a short story in which Alyoshin recounts his infatuation with his friend Luganovich's wife Anna, as well as a short story about Belikov, a teacher of Greek who attempts to hide himself from the world. In addition to writing about love and The Man in a Case, this author wrote a short story in which Vasilisa is moved to tears by the story of Peter's denial of Jesus, as well as a story in which Hobotov schemes to consign Dr. Andrei Ragin to the title location.
That is Chekhov.
Ward number 6.
Here's your bonus. During one of this composer's all-night concerts, he premiered his piece Poppy No Good and the Phantom Band for 10 points each. Name this composer who founded the traveling avant-garde to perform his piece, The Saint Adolphe Ring. His work of electronic music include Persian's Sugary Dervishes and A Rainbow in Curved Air. Riley's composition in C jump-started this musical movement, which focuses on interlocking repetitive musical patterns. Its early proponents included Lamont Young, Steve Reich, and Philip Glass. Riley composed his five-part cycle, Salome Dances for Peace, for this ensemble. It was founded by David Harrington after he heard George Crumb's Black Angels on the radio.
Bang on again.
It's the Kronos Quartet.
Kronos.
Toss-up 3. This week, a city council will vote on this man's proposal to create an infrastructure trust that would allow billions of dollars of private capital to be injected into his city's public infrastructure projects by allowing private parties to receive part of the public revenue stream. In late 2011, this man announced a plan to reform his city's community colleges by letting large corporations design the curriculum with the intent to teach students in-demand skills. This man eliminated 1,400 vacant positions in his city's police department, saving nearly $100 million, but opening himself to criticism after his city saw a 60% increase in the murder rate this year. Prior to defeating Gary Chico in a mayoral election, this man served as Democratic caucus chairman under Nancy Pelosi. One of his former jobs is currently held by Jacob Lew. For 10 points, name this former White House chief of staff. That's right. This book includes an American version of the Flying Dutchman legend, The Storm Ship, as well as the stories The Stout Gentleman and The Student of Salamanca for 10 points each. Name this book, first published in 1822, which consists of stories about an old English manor house. Its Christmas scenes inspired Charles Dickens to write A Christmas Carol. Answer? It's Bracebridge Hall. Bracebridge Hall is narrated by this character who also narrates the stories The Devil and Tom Walker and The Spectre Bridegroom. No, it's Geoffrey Crayon. This American author used the pseudonym Geoffrey Crayon in his sketchbook. He also wrote Tales of the Alhambra and created the fictional historian Dietrich Knickerbocker. 10 points. Toss-up 4. One dispute over this practice is whether or not sifat can be a basis for it. This practice's name literally translates as well-traveled road. Examples of how to perform this practice have been collected in texts called sirat. One example of this practice is performing zakat for at least 3 people in each of the 8 categories of beneficiaries. According to tradition, the Caliph Umar stated that he only kissed the black stone of the Kaaba because he was following this practice. This practice is justified by Quran verses such as, "In the Messenger of God you have a good example," and ways following this practice can often be learned from hadiths. For 10 points, name this Islamic practice of imitating the customs of 4.
So this is like the Sharia?
No. Of imitating the customs and habits of Muhammad, which gives its name to the largest branch of Islam. That's 3.
It's you.
No, it's Sunnah.
Oh, Sunnah. That's what I was going to say too. I didn't know what it was.
Okay, toss up 5. Several newspapers biased in favor of this American political party were edited by Joseph Denny, and the views of this party were championed by the journalist William Cobbett. Journalists who opposed this party included James Callender and Benjamin Franklin Batch, or Bakey, or whatever. This party once nominated Richard Stockton for vice president. Members of this party wore dark ribbons in their hats, known as black cockades. Later, this party's members were derisively called blue lights for allegedly 5.
Federalist?
Yep. Answer the following about Eastern Orthodox services for 10 points each. In an Eastern Orthodox church, the altar is separated from worshippers by this ornately decorated structure, a wall filled with depictions of saints and holy figures. Only priests may walk through this door.
I think Catholics should do this one.
What?
Sanctuary.
Sanctuary door.
It's called an iconostasis. The liturgy still used at many Orthodox churches dates back to this 4th century church father. This famed orator was also a harsh critic of Christians who continued to follow Jewish customs, whom he attacked against the Jews.
Is it Basil?
Okay. Basil law.
What?
Basil law.
Answer.
Basil.
No, it's St. John Chrysostom.
Oh, Chrysostom.
Eastern Orthodox Christians fast for 2 weeks in early August to commemorate this Orthodox holiday. It commemorates the death and resurrection of Mary.
That's what it is for Catholics. Well,
What's the
yeah.
holiday called?
Assumption.
Answer.
Assumption.
No, it's the Feast of the Dormition. You get no points. Toss up 6. Dobzhansky noted this effect in Drosophila pseudo-obscura while studying STCH inversions. Older theories ascribe this phenomenon to dominance or overdominance, though linkage and epistasis are now thought to account for most of its effects. Determining mutation rates with the Hardy-Weinberg equation fails with loci affected by this phenomenon, as novel mutation rates appear to be anomalously high. Inbreeding depression is the inverse of this effect, which affects the chloride transporter that is mutated in cystic fibrosis because Salmonella typhi binds most efficiently to the wild.
Heterozygote of men.
Yeah. Here's your bonus. Oops. Here's your bonus. The Greek diplomat Megasthenes described the maintenance of this road shortly after it was built for 10 points each. Name this historic road in northern India, a major trade route that ran from Kabul to Bengal.
Is the Burma road?
No. Silk Road.
It's the Grand Trunk Road. The Grand Trunk Road was most extensively renovated by this usurper who overthrew the Mughal Emperor Humayun. His short-lived successors were overthrown and the Mughals were reestablished.
Bahadur Shah.
It's Sher Shah.
Oh, Sher Shah. Sorry.
After being overthrown by Sher Shah, Humayun fled to the court of this Safavid emperor, the longest reigning of the entire dynasty. If it helps, he signed the Treaty of Amasya with Suleiman the Magnificent.
Ismail 1.
It's Tahmasp the First. We get nothing. All right, toss up 7. Carl Jung, in Studies in Word Analysis, used GSR to study this phenomenon in response to certain words. Hans Eysenck's theory of personality postulates that extroverts have a low level of the cortical type of this state, while introverts have a high level. Robert Zajonk's experiments about social facilitation found that awareness of the presence of others increased this state. Yerkes and Dodson discovered a U-shaped curve between this state and performance. An experiment by Dutton and Aaron found that No. No. Let me think about this. Yeah, I'm not going to. An experiment by Dutton and Aaron found that subjects misattributed the state after talking to an attractive woman on a bridge, lending support for Schachter and Singer's two-factor theory, which holds that emotions are caused by a combination of this state and cognition. 10 points named this heightened physiological state in which the body's cortical and autonomic nervous systems react to stimuli.
Arousal.
Here is your bonus. The last of these paintings use strong vertical lines to express sadness, while the first of them depict the chaotic motion of a train, labeled 6943 for 10 points each. Name this triptych painted in 1911, which consists of the farewells, those who go, and those who stay.
11, 16,
What you got? States of Mind. States of Mind was painted by this Italian futurist who also painted The City Rises and sculpted unique forms of continuity in space. This Italian artist was briefly a futurist at the beginning of his career, but moved on to paint hundreds of spare restrained still lifes of bottles, boxes, and vases.
It's not Bala. Cara.
It's Giorgio Morandi. You got 10 points. Awesome. 8. The boundary between this portion of the geologic timescale and its predecessor is defined using the Dababia quarry section of Egypt, which marks the base of its first subdivision, the Ypresian. It saw the end of the Laramide orogeny, and it ended with an extinction event known in Europe as the Grande Coupure. It also ended with a transition to an icehouse climate, while it began during an event marked by release of huge amounts of carbon into the ocean and atmosphere, and a global increase in temperature of about 5 to 8 degrees. That event is the thermal maximum named for this epoch and its predecessor. It is the second epoch of the Tertiary and Paleogene periods and of the Cenozoic era. For 10 points, name this epoch bookended by the Paleocene and Oligocene. 2.
The Pleistocene?
No. The Paleocene and Oligocene epochs, whose name derives from the appearance of modern mammals and other groups, or the dawn of recent life.
Eocene.
That's 10. This nation's landmark Pearl Roundabout was demolished by the government after it became a symbol for Arab Spring-inspired protests for 10 points each. Name this island nation in the Persian Gulf, the headquarters of the U.S. Navy's 6th Fleet.
Bahrain.
Bahrain's Arab Spring uprising was brutally crushed by troops from this large Middle Eastern nation, which is connected to Bahrain by a causeway. This nation feared that Bahrainian protesters were too close to Iran.
Oman.
Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
The Saudi government allegedly made a large payment to this Gulf state, the headquarters of Al Jazeera, after which Al Jazeera coverage of the Arab Spring became far less favorable. That's right. 20 points. Toss up 9. In Babylonian mythology, rising from the pit of Nanshe was intended to symbolize this action, which is also performed by a rust-red rooster that crows alongside Fyalar and Gulinkambi to achieve this effect at 4.
Reincarnation.
Yes. Maybe not the best question in the world.
No, it really was.
Here's your bonus. This man stabbed gas station attendant Joseph Fournier 19 times for 10 points each. Name this man who more famously raped a Maryland woman after escaping from a prison furlough program in Massachusetts.
Harvard, Blair, Horton.
That's right. Willie Horton was used in several campaign ads for George H.W. Bush, whose 1988 campaign was run by this man. He died of cancer at age 40 in 1991.
Yeah.
The Willie Horton ad was called racist by this Texas senator, perhaps best known for telling Dan Quayle that he was no Jack Kennedy. He also served as Treasury Secretary to Bill Clinton. 30. Toss up 10, after which a score check. One of this author's works contrasts figures like Plug, son of Undershot, and Sir Jabesh Windbag with the nobility of the 12th century monk Abbot Samson. Anthony Trollope satirized this author as Dr. Pessimist Anticant in The Warden in response to one of his essay collections, which includes Hudson's statue. This author invented the figure of Bobus to represent corrupt businessmen and depicted black workers on a Caribbean sugar plantation as subhuman in an essay which notoriously defends slavery, occasional discourse on the Negro question. That's right. These poets worked in forms such as the Pastorelle and the Alba and included Bernard of Ventadour and Arnaud Daniel for 10 points each. Name these medieval poets who gained prominence in Western Europe in the 12th and 13th centuries. Their poems often express submission to a lady and courtly love.
Troubadour.
Yep. C.S. Lewis demonstrated that troubadours address their lovers as midons, which means my lord, in this book, which also analyzes Gower's Confessio Amantis and The Romance of the Rose.
C.S. Lewis. Years ago.
Answer.
Mere Christianity.
It's the allegory of love. Troubadours mainly wrote in this Romance language, spoken primarily in southern France. Frédéric Mistral wrote many poems in this language, including Mireio.
Southern France.
Yes.
Provence. Provençal.
I'm not going to take Provençal or Occitan. So you got 10 points. What's that?
That's the name in its language.
Right, but I mean, like, I said this language, and you gave me the name of the place. I don't know. I'm not going to take it. If you want to protest it, then you're welcome to do so. Okay, so that was toss of 10.
I have 70 for Penn, 125 for Minnesota.
Okay. Toss up 11. During this conflict, a military unit named for King Deiotarus of the Galatians may have been annihilated. That unit was the 12th Legion. One leader in this conflict was accused of keeping a flaming piece of straw in his mouth, giving him the appearance of breathing fire. During this conflict, Julius Severus replaced Tineius Rufus as governor. Primary documents from this conflict were discovered in 1960 in the so-called Cave of Letters.
Bar Coqua's Revolt.
That's correct. Here's a bonus for you. The first of these theorems states that for a finite group whose order contains a factor of some prime p raised to the power n, that group contains subgroups of order of all powers of p up to n, for 10 points each. Identify the set of 3 theorems about finite groups, the third of which provides a way of counting p subgroups of a group.
I really hope it's in the CeeLo theorems.
That's right. The second CeeLo theorem states that any 2 p subgroups of a finite group G have this relation, which is equivalent to the existence of an inner automorphism of G that takes one of the subgroups to the other.
Conjugates?
That's right.
Yeah.
The CeeLo theorems can be used to show that the alternating group on this many letters is the smallest simple group not of prime order. Polynomials of this degree and or higher do not have a general expression for their roots in radicals, according to a theorem by Abel.
5.
That's right.
All right.
30 points. Toss up 12. One work in this collection is a dialogue between Thrasymachus and Philalethes, in which the author attempts to establish the indestructibility of our true being by death. A religious controversy is likened to a dialogue in a Milanese theater in another work in this collection, in which the author notes that the chief objection I have to pantheism is that it says nothing. A few words on pantheism. Christianity's inmost truth, that suffering is the real purpose of life, causes it to condemn the title action in the essay on suicide, while one of the most famous works in this collection was approvingly cited by both Freud and Wagner.
Encyclopedia.
That's wrong. As an influence and concerns such topics as clairvoyance, animal magnetism, and somnambulism, including the misogynist essay on women, this work comprised of all... That's right.
Yeah.
What's that?
My camera.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Thanks for reminding me. You're under the gun, Minnesota. All right. That is correct, and you get this bonus. 10 points each name these winners of the Whitbread Prize. In 1986, this author won for his novel An Artist of the Floating World. He later won the Booker Prize for his novel about the butler Stevens, The Remains of the Day. This author won the 1977 prize for her novel Injury Time. She fictionalized the sinking of the Titanic in Every Man for Himself, and never won the Booker despite being shortlisted 5 times for novels such as The Bottle Factory Outing and An Awfully Big Adventure. Beryl Bainbridge. This Irish author's novel Brooklyn won the 2009 Whitbread Prize. He included his short story The Street in his collection The Empty Family and fictionalized the life of Henry James in his 2004 novel The Master.
Oh, shit. Yeah, I don't remember his name though. O'Neill.
No, it's Colm Toibin. You got 10 points for Ishiguro. Toss up 13. In this work's final movement, 2 pianos, a harp, and timpani softly repeat the notes E flat, B flat, F before this piece ends on an unusually widely spaced C major chord. Its first movement begins with a mezzo forte E minor chord, followed by a series of 16th note arpeggios played by the oboes and bassoons. Its second movement consists of an instrumental fugue, followed by fugue for human voices, which unite at the line Et emissit in os meum canticum novum. This symphony's third movement includes triplets for horns and piano, evoking the sound of Elijah's Chariot, and begins with the chorus singing Alleluia. Commissioned by Serge Koussevitzky for the 50th anniversary of the Boston Symphony Orchestra, this symphony was written during its composer's neoclassical period and sets 3 texts from the Old Testament. 10 points named the Symphony by Igor Stravinsky, named for poems traditionally thought... 5. That's right.
That's what I was thinking.
One example of this type of process forms a crucial step in the Lind liquefaction cycle. For 10 points each, identify this type of adiabatic process exemplified by the throttling process, in which the sum of the internal energy and the product of pressure and volume remains unchanged.
Isochore?
This is an isenthalpic process.
Oh.
The classical example of an isenthalpic process is a gas throttled by a porous plug and then cooling, named for its two 19th century discoverers.
Joule-Thomson.
That's right.
Okay.
Cooling in the Joule-Thomson process occurs only when, for a given pressure, the temperature of the gas lies below this curve, which is defined by the derivative of the temperature with respect to pressure at constant enthalpy. It's called the inversion curve. You get 10 points. Okay. Toss up 14. This nation became independent under the leadership of President Snegur, and for most of the 1990s it was ruled by the regressive agrarian party, who opposed economic reforms. Its most recent election saw the Alliance for European Integration beat out the still powerful Communist Party. The western border of this nation is the Prut River. About 4% of this nation belongs to the Gagauz ethnicity, who are Turkish-speaking Muslims. This nation claims the cities of Bender and Tiraspol, which are under the control of a Russian-speaking breakaway state. This nation's language is virtually identical to Romanian, and it was part of Romania until World War II. 10 points saying this former Soviet republic from which Transnistria is a breakaway. That's you.
Moldova.
That's right. A bonus for you. In this opera's third scene, Wotan and Loga travel to Nibelheim and kidnap Alberich in order to pay Fosselt and Fafnir for constructing Valhalla for 10 points each. In this regard, Wagner opera, in which Alberich forges the magic ring but places a curse upon it after seeing it stolen by Wotan.
So which one is it? It's one of the rings. Siegfried.
Thus, Rheingold begins with Alberich renouncing this emotion in order to steal the Rhine gold. The ring cycle ends with a leitmotif usually called redemption through this emotion. Answer, love. Okay, in Das Rheingold, Wotan reluctantly gives the ring to Fosselt and Fafnir after this primeval goddess rises from the ground and warns him about the ring's curse, predicting the downfall of the gods. I don't know. Impress me.
Maslov.
No, it's Erda. That's no points. Toss of 15, after which we'll have another score check, probably. One character in this movie bribes his captors by dealing them 5 $100 bills during a poker game. That character, a cripple, dies while crawling to a mud puddle and imagining the waves of the Pacific Ocean. In this movie's mostly silent 10-minute-long opening sequence, 3 killers wait for the arrival of a train, only to be shot by this movie's protagonist. Its main conflict occurs over land bought by Brett McBain, whose dream of building the town of Sweetwater is achieved by his wife Jill, who is played by Claudia Cardinale. Jason Robards played the... that's 3.
Once upon a time in the West.
That's right. For 10 points each, name these concepts from feminist theory. Feminists believe that women are oppressed by this kind of society, which is ruled and dominated by men. This concept describes how multiple identities of a person's life interact. Kimberly Crenshaw coined this term to analyze how black women are oppressed by their race and their gender.
Dual hegemony.
It's intersectionality.
Okay.
Gayatri Spivak advocated that minority groups use the strategic form of this concept, although she rejected it otherwise. It asserts that there are innate fixed differences that define categories like gender or race.
Can't think of the term. Determinism.
Essentialism.
Essentialism. That's
You get 10 points. Let's do a tally.
185 for Minnesota.
Yep.
115 for Penn.
Yep.
Okay. 5 toss-ups remaining. Toss-up 16. The first man to hold this title was nicknamed the Red and founded the University of Heidelberg. The Simmern and Neuburg lines were cadet branches of the House of Wittelsbach that held this title.
Duke of Bavaria.
No. In 1777, this title merged into the Bavarian crown. Earlier, this title had been abolished in 1623 during the 30 Years' War, but was recreated by the Treaty of Westphalia. One man who held this office for over a decade had a son who moved to England and commanded the cavalry of Charles I, Prince Rupert. The most notable holder of this office was a Protestant who invaded Bohemia and briefly became the Winter King, Frederick V. For 10 points, name this office of the Holy Roman Empire, whose holder could vote for emperor and ruled a province along the Rhine.
Saxon.
No, it's the Elector Palatine. Toss up 17. This play ends with another of its characters taking up his grandfather's call, go out and fight so life shouldn't be printed on dollar bills. That character fights his family's opposition to his girlfriend Blanche and works as a clerk in a silk house. One character in this play smashes her father's beloved record of Caruso performing O Paradiso. This play climaxes with Henny leaving her husband Sam Feinschreiber and running off to Havana with Mo Axelrod. The central family in this play includes the matriarch Bessie, her Marxist father Jacob, and her idealistic son Ralph. Taking its title from the book of Isaiah, it is set in a Bronx apartment during the Great Depression and was first staged after the success of its author's play, Waiting for Lefty. For 10 points, name this play with a musical title about the Burger family. That's you.
Wait and see.
That is correct. Answer the following questions about Spanish fiscal policy during the 1500s for 10 points each. In 1588, Philip II was forced to levy an excise tax called the Milones to pay for the failed Spanish Armada, which had been placed under the command of this nobleman. No, it's Medina Sidonia. A major source of revenue for the Spanish crown was the sale of these contracts, which gave a merchant the right to perform a task like importing bullion from the colonies. The most lucrative ones granted the right to transport African slaves to Spanish colonies and was awarded to Britain in the Treaty of Utrecht. That's right. Despite levying taxes and selling government contracts, Philip II's high military spending forced him to take this action 4 different times. Spain has performed this action over a dozen times in the last 500 years. Yeah. That's what you do when you got no money. Say, I ain't got no money. Okay, that was 20 points on the bonus. So what's the score?
215, 110.
Yeah.
3 tosses for me. Toss 18. Kim and Klein observed extremely long-distance proton jumping in these compounds. Catalysis that proceeds via enzyme-bound metal ions is sometimes named for these compounds, reflecting the metal ion's electron sink role. These compounds, which have a Hammett function of 12 or below, were used to elucidate the structure of stable carbocations by George Olah. They are commercially important due to their ability to catalyze hydrocarbon cracking and antimony Eric.
Super acid.
That's right.
God damn it. Don't know why I didn't know that.
Okay. Here's your bonus. His title, Kenti Amentiu, or King of the West, refers to his rulership of the underworld for 10 points each, named this god, whose penis was eaten by a catfish when his brother cut him up into 14 pieces and threw him in the Nile.
Osiris.
Yes. One account of Isis' search for the body of Osiris claims that she found his coffin in a tree trunk in this Phoenician city, which, along with Cyprus, is also claimed to be the birthplace of Adonis.
That's Simon.
No, it's Byblos. This writer likened Osiris' brother Set to the Greek Typhon in his Bibliotheca Historia. He's also the source for the legends of Semiramis and Ozymandias.
Yeah.
It's Diodorus Siculcus. Toss up 9. That's 10 on the bonus.
215, 130.
Yeah.
Toss up 19. In the bottom left of this painting, an emaciated dog gnaws at the face of a child, and a king lies slumped under a figure holding an hourglass while his gold coins are stolen. Another figure in this painting plays a hurdy-gurdy as people are crushed under the wheels of his cart. In the bottom right of this painting, a jester dives under a dinner table next to Scrooge. That's right. This character narrates that Sergeant O'Neill once made fun of him for dressing like a transvestite in the first several parcels that make up his account. 10 points each. Name this character who shoots the Constable Fitzpatrick to preserve his sister's honor and is sentenced to death after shootout at Glen Rowan, after which he's sentenced to death. The novel about him contains no commas in its frame story, which is narrated by S.C.
SC. Novel that contains a story, so it's the thing.
Answer.
Brandon Quillen.
It's Ned Kelly. This Australian author fictionalized the life of Ned Kelly and the true history of the Kelly gang. His other novels include Parrot and Olivier in America and Oscar and Lucinda.
Aaron.
Alexander Finch carries on a disappointingly chaste relationship with Florence Nightingale in the title story of this Carey collection, which imagines a future where gluttony is rewarded.
It's not Billy Wagner. Maybe it is. It's not.
What you got?
Billy Wagner.
It's the fat man in history. 10 points.
Well, we had a protest, right? We just wanted to make sure that we have a
Yeah, it's not gonna. It's not gonna.
So it's 150 to 235.
215.
Oh, 215.
Yeah.
So there's no
The
even
protest isn't gonna matter.
Okay.
even with the even if the protest was granted, they could not make up the difference.
Just don't back. Yeah.
Okay, the last toss-up. In one work in this language, a thief lays a piece of cloth across a road in order to confiscate a farmer's goods, causing that farmer to make 9 pleas for justice to the judge Renzi. Writers in this language frequently placed red dots above the text to indicate verse points. In another work in this language, a man murders his lover by throwing a wax animal into a stream, causing it to come to life and kill her. A third work in this language includes a passage frequently mistranslated as a man receiving oral sex from a snake, who tells the title character how his family was incinerated by a falling star. This language was also used to write The Eloquent Peasant and the story of the shipwrecked sailor, as well as the tale of Sinuke and the Westcar text. For 10 points in this ancient language used to write the spells collected in the Book of the Dead, which was often printed on papyrus.
Egyptian.
That's right. And the bonus for you. Name. I don't have a lead in. Okay, I guess you'll just be naming this Balkan country, which controls the regions of Slavonia and Dalmatia, and was ruled by the fascist Ustaše party of Ante Pavelić during World War II.
Croatia.
Operation Storm was led to the complete destruction of this unrecognized secessionist state created by Serbs living in the Croatian border. It takes its name from a Slavic word for border or frontier.
Separatist Croatian state.
Answer.
I can't remember.
It's Krajina.
Oh, Krajina.
A month before Operation Storm, ethnic Serbs in Bosnia and Herzegovina committed this massacre of 8,000 Bosnian Muslims. Croatia claims that Operation Storm was necessary to prevent a similar massacre in Krajina.
Srebrenica.
20 points.
180, 215.
Stuff out there.
Yeah. These things happen.